Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new series of podcasts called Transformative Talks by Pooja. I am Pooja Churamani, and I'd like to bring to you some very interesting information. I would like to talk to you about current affairs, public policy, digital technology, and anything else that might inspire you or interest you. I promise you today's podcast is going to be very interesting because today we are going to talk about Operation Sindoor and the tactics, technology, and electronic warfare that gave India military superiority in May 2025. Let me introduce to you a very special guest today, Wing Commander Pradeep Valsankar. Pradeep ji has been in the Indian Air Force for over 20 years. He has a degree in computer science. He has a master's degree in computer science from IIT Bombay, and he used to be in charge of the electronic warfare unit of an Indian Air Force base before he transitioned to the World Bank as a consultant. Pradeep ji, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Thanks a lot for inviting me to these podcasts.
So, my very first question to you regarding Operation Sindoor, as we're all very curious, and I'm sure the audience also wants to understand in simple terms, what is electronic warfare? How are radars used this time during the Indo-Pak Operation Sindoor? And how have they evolved over time?
Thank you very much, Pooja. I think that's a very interesting and an important question. Because to understand Op Sindoor, it is very important to understand the electronics behind the entire operation. And this story really goes back about 80 years, around the Second World War, when not much of electronics was being used during the warfare. When Germany used to mount air raids on London during the Battle of Britain, waves after waves of German bombers used to come and bomb London and nearby areas and go back with impunity. The only way to know how many airplanes were coming, from which direction, at what height, was these airmen who were sitting at the border of UK with binoculars, looking for these raids coming from across the British Channel. But by the time they told the headquarters or the Air Defense Command as to how many aeroplanes were coming, they were already overhead. But around the year 43-44, Germany realized that even before they entered the English Channel, British Spitfires were already airborne, and they pinpointedly knew from which direction the German raid was coming and how many of them were coming, at what height were they flying, at what speed were they flying. And Germany was quite puzzled as to how does Britain know that how many aeroplanes were coming from which direction. That was the advent of a radar. The first radar had been found. Radar is an acronym for radio detection and ranging. It was a very simple technology. What you did was fire an electromagnetic wave, the same wave that you and I today use on our cellular phone to receive signals, voice signals. The same type of electronic wave was transmitted in the air. As it hit any metallic object like an aeroplane, it would get reflected back. And that reflected energy was picked up by the receiver of a radar unit, thereby giving away the location and height of the incoming aeroplane. The time taken for this electromagnetic energy to go and come back would give away the distance, because we knew the speed at which the electromagnetic energy travels. So this was the basic fundamental radar technology that got invented during the Second World War, thereby giving away the location of the enemy raids. With the advent of radar, Germany started losing a lot of their aircraft, because as they crossed the English Channel, a battery of Spitfires were already there, ready to welcome them with their blazing guns. Clearly, something had to be done. And that is the time Germany came up with a very simple idea. They would send a decoy aircraft in a completely different direction and drop hundreds of large metallic leaves And these metal leaves will also reflect electromagnetic energy, thereby cluttering the scope of a radar unit. And in that cluttered scope of the radar unit, the actual raid consisting of hundreds of bombers would just fly away and come and raid Britain. So the first stage of electronic countermeasure against a radar had been invented. It was not long before Britain realized what Germany was trying to do, and they decided to find out a solution to this problem. And they realized that these metallic leaves which were dropped were not moving very fast. They were obviously nearly just floating down. An aeroplane cannot sustain flight below a certain speed. So obviously, if an object was not moving at the speed of an aircraft, it couldn't be an aircraft. So a simple algorithm in a radar that said that if the object is not moving at a given speed, then it is not an aircraft, solved this problem. And that was the advent of first electronic countermeasure, or ECCM. So first was radar, second was ECM, electronic countermeasure, and third one was electronic countermeasures.
By now it must be CCCC many times over.
Absolutely. So in this fashion, electronics came to play a very important and a very major role in a modern warfare. Electronic continuously kept evolving. From electromagnetics, we went to laser technology. Laser technology got harnessed to pinpointedly identify and locate a target and send weapons towards it. Then we came with geographical positioning system to again pinpointedly identify a location on ground which could be targeted. We came with space technology, and that gave rise to intercontinental ballistic missile. The whole lot of technologies came into being, and radars moved from being ground-based radar to airborne radars, and today we have got airborne early warning systems which carry very, very modern radars on board an aeroplane and can cover a very large area to detect any enemy air activity. So that in brief is how electronic warfare evolved.
So we heard that India had jammed their radar system of Pakistan. How would that have happened then? And because then it's said that because of that they could not either activate their anti-missile defense system or could not neutralize the missiles that were sent. What would have gone behind the scenes there?
Right. So if you see Op Sindoor, we can actually put Op Sindoor into three specific categories. The first category was attacking their 9 terrorist sites, where we used 2 types of missiles, Scalp and Hammer, and we'll talk about it. The second one was defending ourselves against a barrage of UAVs and drones and missiles which were fired at us from Pakistan, and we very, very successfully thwarted that attempt of Pakistan. And third phase was responding to this attack by Pakistan, wherein we fired BrahMos missiles which went and very accurately hit their designated targets. So let's discuss all 3 of them one by one.
Yeah.
So let's first pick up the first part, which is hitting the terrorist sites. We have known about these sites for over 25-30 years. Take, for example, Muridke. If you ask the lowest of low ranks in any of the intelligence services across the world, they would know that Muridke is the training headquarters of Jamaat-ud-Dawa. It's no secret at all. So hitting Muridke right in its center, pinpointedly, was accomplished by 2 missiles which were air-launched, and they were beyond visual range, so they were launched by aeroplanes which were flying well within the Indian territory. Hammer, which was launched to to attack Muridke was air launched, and once launched, it was fire and forget. It carried the GPS location of the target, and it went and exactly hit the Muridke training center. Similarly, the other air-launched missiles were used with our modern aeroplanes, Rafales and Mirages, and I would not like to go into the details of that. Suffice to say that accuracy of these weapons was so wonderfully well that each one of them exactly penetrated the designated building for which it was utilized.
Yes. We've
And
seen several pictures and videos
we have
of
seen
that,
several
yes.
pictures, and we have seen several videos of that. They're available all over the public space. So that was phase one. They were all used, they were all stuck with air-launched cruise missiles. The second phase was defending ourselves against a barrage of UAVs and drones and missiles which were fired at us. And India can really congratulate itself for having developed the Akash and Akash Tir system of air defense. Akash is what we call in the Air Force a SAM, or surface to air missile, which detects and engages any flying object, whether it is an aircraft or a missile or a UAV or a drone, and destroys it well before it can reach its designated target. Again, the technology is what got invented during the Second World War. There is a radar which picks up a flying object at a distance of 300-400 kilometers. Its coordinates are found and a missile is fired. Now this missile is also coordinated by the radar, and it keeps finding the difference between the missile coordinates and our fired Akash coordinates, and eventually directs the Akash missile towards the aerial object and destroys it.
This probably has to be done in seconds. It has to be done very quickly, because it probably takes a few minutes for them to come over the border.
It happens in seconds. You are absolutely
So
correct.
is somebody manually pressing a button, or is it going to happen automatically?
It happens completely electronically.
I see.
There is no human intervention at all in this. The radar signatures are found, and they're put into a computing algorithm, and the computing algorithm continuously keeps updating the coordinates of the missile and keeps controlling the missile till Akash goes and hits the target. It happens in real time, it happens electronically, and a lot of computing technology gets utilized in this. And we are so fortunate that hundreds of drones and UAVs and missiles fired at us, not one of them could hit any of the meaningful targets that they were meant to be. That shows the efficacy of our Akash and Akash T. I think at this point of time, it's important for us to talk a little bit about Akash. Akash is a surface-to-air missile developed completely indigenously by DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. It uses a very intricate command and control system. India has got a very large border, thousands of kilometers. And there are hundreds of these Akash units which are spread across the border. And they're all sending signals to a central command and control station, where very senior armed forces officers from the Air Force and Army are sitting to take very critical decisions. See, it is very important that these weapons being so effective should never be used erroneously against any of our own assets.
Yes.
An air raid which has gone into Pakistan is coming back, and it gets erroneously designated as an enemy airplane and could get shot down by Akash. So for that we require very effective command and control system. So all these signals from various radars are pouring into a command control system, where a very complicated computing algorithm is continuously creating what we call in Air Force parlance the electronic order of battle. What is happening? It is called battle awareness. What is happening in the battle? which UAVs are coming from which directions, at what distance it is, what is likely to be its target, when is it likely to reach the target, how much time do I have to eliminate this weapon. All this data continuously keeps getting updated in the computer, which is the nearest missile that I can use effectively to neutralize this. All this happens electronically. The battle awareness happens electronically, and targets are engaged. Simultaneously, we can fire hundreds of Akash missiles and engage and eliminate hundreds of flying objects. And this got proven during Op Sindoor, where not a single UAV or drone or aircraft or missile of Pakistan could come anywhere close to any of our targets. Adampur Air Base, which Pakistan claimed to have destroyed, was visited by our Honorable Prime Minister the very next day. And all the BrahMos and aircraft and men and officers were there to welcome him. And we all witnessed that nothing at all had happened to that airbase at all. So,
including the S-400 in the background. I really like that.
Including the S-400 in the background, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our air defense system today, controlled by missiles like Akash and other vintage surface-to-air missiles and air defense aeroplanes, is impenetrable.
So would you say our Akash Tir is similar to the aerodrome used by Israel? I always thought that the aerodrome was amazing, but it seems like India has developed this amazing Akash Tir system, which might be at par or even better.
So Akash Tir is fundamentally a command and control system for air defense. You can connect hundreds of radars to an Akash Tir system, get signals from them, identify targets, analyze them, allocate missiles to each of those targets, fire those missiles, and destroy these targets simultaneously using the Akash Tir
And it can identify whether it's a drone, whether it's a UAV, what kind of missile it is, and what kind of missile should be fired in response to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Depending on the type of target, whether it is a slow-moving target, big target, small target, what kind of war it is likely to carry. All these factors are taken into consideration while choosing a weapon to eliminate that target.
Okay. Now let's move on to BrahMos.
Right.
Tell us a bit about BrahMos and tell us how it started.
So we've just now covered two parts of Op Sindoor. First one was hitting the terrorist targets, which was done with pinpointed accuracy, completely destroying these targets. So today terrorists know wherever they go in the world, they are not very far away from Indian Armed Forces reach. Second one was defending ourselves against hundreds of missiles fired at us by Pakistan. And once we eliminated the threat created by Pakistan, the third part was to hit them where it hurts them the most. And that is where BrahMos missiles came. BrahMos is a cruise missile. Why is it called a cruise missile? Because it cruises at a designated speed at very low height so that the enemy radars cannot pick it up. While you fly...
At what height do enemy radars pick up typically? I've heard this several times, but I never understand at what is the threshold height below which...
So different radars would have different threshold heights. Some of the radars, which are weapon system radars, can pick up targets at treetop heights. So at times when you are likely to face an enemy fire control radar, incoming raid flies at treetop heights 50 meters, 70 meters. They can fly that low across the entire ingress and egress flight path. But larger, take for example the surveillance radars that a lot of the countries use, their threshold could be as high as 500 meters. Below 500 meters, they won't be able to pick up a flying object.
So the reason BrahMos could not be detected, one was speed, Second, it can fly very low.
Right.
And any other reason why it could not be
No,
detected?
these are the two reasons. Plus, the third reason, it also carried ECCM on board.
What is ECCM?
So, electronic countermeasures.
Ah, so it can
So
jam their radars.
it can jam their radar. So, it would, on board, it has got a detector, a small radar, which finds out what is the signal, radar signal that's tracking it, and jam that source.
Okay.
So once it jams that source, enemy cannot fire a weapon at it. You know, for me to fire an Akash at any incoming target, I fundamentally need to be able to track that target. If that target jams my radar, my Akash will become completely useless.
So what is the possibility of the enemy jamming our radar system?
So that is
What
where,
sort of countermeasures do we have for that?
so that is where the Akash system, Akash 3 system uses electronic countermeasures.
For example?
For example, if the enemy switches on any countermeasure equipment that is trying to jam my electronic signal, a simple technique is to switch off your radar signal and just pick up whatever he's transmitting. I'm just giving a very laymanish simple example.
Understood.
But several of these technologies are today embedded within the command and control system. So that gives you understanding of how complicated these systems have become over a period of time. Lot of electronics and computing technology goes into it. Lot of today artificial intelligence techniques are used.
Give us an example of how artificial intelligence is
So
used.
take, for example, understanding electronic order of battle. Hundreds of drones, missiles, aeroplanes flying in the battle area. Enemy as well as ours. How does a system know which flying object is a missile or a UAV or a enemy aeroplane or a friendly aeroplane? That is where artificial intelligence comes in. Coordinating different signals, an AI algorithm immediately finds out as to what is the present electronic battle scenario.
So we have even more in our arsenal. Like I believe we have Prithvi and we have Agni and we have long-range intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Absolutely.
How do they work and how are they different?
So yeah, so while we use BrahMos against the airfields of Pakistan, and they were very, very accurate. You have seen pictures of exactly the center line of a runway having been destroyed by a BrahMos missile, and a BrahMos missile penetrating the exact top of a hangar wherein Pakistan AWACS was
Damaged.
had been kept. So these kind of very accurate. So these are surface cruise missiles, BrahMos. But we got Prithvi, and Prithvi is a long-range cruise missile. It can go right up to the end of Pakistan and destroy objects there. It can also carry nuclear warheads.
And that also is not detectable by radar? Does it?
So
is it
that also
equipped with
carries electronic countermeasures,
Right.
as I explained.
Okay.
And then we have got intercontinental ballistic missiles, which will enter space if we have to fire at an enemy which is at a very, very far distance at any future time. We have got intercontinental ballistic missiles which will enter space, cover the distance in space at 7-8 times the speed of sound, re-enter Earth's atmosphere, go and hit the target. That's intercontinental ballistic missiles. And we have got them.
Amazing. Okay, what about the future? Do you think in the future we need to upgrade our technology better? But I think the government has done an amazing job of developing Akash there indigenously. The more we develop indigenously our weapons and our defense systems, the stronger we are. Where do you see, do we need to allocate more of our defense budget to getting latest technology, airplanes, maybe stealth aircrafts? What is next? What do you think about this?
So I think what Sindoor has done is it has proven without an iota of a doubt that electronics and computing and artificial intelligence is going to exceedingly play a very, very important role in any modern day warfare. Take, for example, a UAV today is capable of carrying out nearly the same task that a multi-million dollar fighter aircraft would do, and we'll have to also endanger the life of a pilot, which is very precious to us. Modern warfare and future warfare is going to move towards unmanned aerial vehicles,
Robots?
robots, artificial intelligence
Based.
robots, and these technologies are going to come in a very big way to not only neutralize enemy targets but also defend ourselves through air defense systems. And we are very fortunate that Defense Research Development Organization, which was started nearly 50 years back, is today a very, very matured organization. It has got many arms of its own, addressing to different aspects of technology. And we are at a cutting edge of these technologies today, whether it is GIS, whether it is countermeasures, missile technologies, cruise missiles, ICBMs. We have our hands at it. And as you know, Pooja, India is also at the cutting edge of computing technology. And also, we are very fast moving in the area of artificial intelligence. And all these technologies taken together, India is likely to be at the forefront of modern day warfare.
So, as we conclude, what would be your top 2 or 3 messages in improving India's electronic warfare and making India ready for the future?
I think Sindoor has given a number of messages, not only to India but to all the armed forces and countries across the world. Sindoor has been very interestingly observed by all the armed forces across the world, and everybody has praised the way technology was effectively used by India. So the first message is that we have to modernize ourselves, and the process of modernization has to be a continuous one. We can never stop that process. That's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is, while technology modernization is important, it is the men behind the machines which eventually matter in a war. So continuously training and keeping your technical skills honed is a very, very important thing. Take, for example, in the Indian Armed Forces, the entire technical wing, the technical force, is trained continuously. In my 22 years of active service, I trained for 6 to 7 years of my life. I was just training. I did ab initio training. I went to an IIT to study technology. I did Defense Services Staff College. So I was continuously training, as a result of which I was ready to face the enemy with the most modern warfare and modern warfare technology that was needed. So these are a couple of very important takeaways from Sindoor.
Thank you, Pradeep ji, for joining us today and enlightening us with such interesting information on electronic warfare. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our armed forces, our government led by Prime Minister Modi, who have protected us and kept us secure, everyone who has worked towards making Operation Sindoor successful and keeping us safe and sound. A very big thank you to all of you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Pooja, for inviting me to this podcast. It has been a pleasure to be a part of your podcast, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Hello, friends. So if you've liked this podcast, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and also press the bell icon so you get updated when we launch new podcasts. Please share it with your friends and family, as that will motivate us to give you more such content. Thank you so much.